Hi, I'm Andy Gears and I'm leading a team building the Serpent and the Seed, a mobile game inspired by Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP and based on the Bible. In my last DevLog video I shared how we'd ended 2022 in a really strong place. We'd built out a prototype of the main bulk of the game in stickman form. And though it looked dreadful, we were ready to start recruiting for an artist to build out the final game art. Well, 3 months later, it's gone from looking like this to looking like this. We had almost 80 people playing our little demo of Act 1 at a conference in Wales, and we had some amazing positive feedback from people who really loved playing it. But if you'd asked me even 4 weeks earlier whether this would have been possible, I would have said almost certainly not. Huge chunks of the game still look like this. So what happened? So step 1, we found an artist. We've been working with a really talented illustrator called Greg. He spent a few weeks before Christmas trying to settle on an art style, looking for a nice compromise between what he could produce efficiently and the kinds of concepts that we'd already been exploring previously. And on that final day before we shut up shop for Christmas, Greg sent through this amazing piece of concept art, which I felt really kind of nailed the style. I was really happy with. Step 2, we set this deadline, the Word Alive conference in Wales, from the 1st to the 6th of April. It was a slightly punchy deadline. We knew we were going to have to get going straight out of the starting blocks fairly efficiently if we were going to meet that target. But at the same time, it felt like a reasonably realistic deadline. 3 months felt long enough to get something meaningful done. But it was also a really motivating deadline. I really wanted to be able to share the game with the public there at the conference, to let them play it. And then we publicly committed to that deadline by putting an advert in the conference brochure saying, "Come and play our demo," which was a good incentive to make sure we really did get it done. And then step 3, we made a plan. Having committed to that deadline, I drew up a spreadsheet of every scene in Act 1 and every art asset required. Then I put a deadline next to each piece of art. We could afford about 1 week per scene of the game. And then I had a few extra weeks built in for a bit of contingency or for some really key characters. And week by week, I would then meet with Greg and we'd discuss what he'd done the week before and plan what he was going to do in the week ahead. As much as possible, we looked for ways to reuse assets between scenes so we didn't have to be redoing everything from scratch, which meant that over time things got more and more efficient. It worked really well, and for sure there were some somewhat hairy weeks, but by the end we had a really efficient system going that worked really well for us. The other crucial aspect was making sure that I was in a position to actually use the assets that were being produced week by week. So I made sure to carve out time. By the end, I found a pretty good system where I could do the layout on a scene in less than a day, which then left me the rest of the week for doing any animation or finalising any interactions. The rest of the team was also fantastic at letting me delegate all sorts of other tasks to them so we could make sure we were moving forwards on as many fronts as possible. And then step 4, I had a little wobble. So everything was going really well until March came around. Andy, I'm really starting to panic. There's only a month to go. I just don't think it's humanly possible to get it all done, and there's just too much. We don't want to make a bad impression by demoing something substandard, do we? Maybe we should just make some kind of photo book or something of our beautiful artwork. Wouldn't that do? But I'm so thankful to God for my friend James, who's been project managing me week by week. I told him how scared I was, and he said, "Listen, Andy, you need that deadline. And remember, it is still a whole month away." He knew just how much it was possible to get done in a month. And honestly, it was just the pep talk I needed at just the right moment. And for sure, we had to make a few adjustments. We managed to streamline the demo, cut out a few scenes in the middle that weren't totally essential. But in some ways, I think it was actually a better demo for it because it was just the right length that people could play it through from start to finish, and then we could get them to fill out our little survey, which was really excellent. So then step 5, we pressed on to the finish line. It was amazing to see it coming together week by week and just how much it developed every time. I decided quite early on I was going to block out that final week leading up to the conference just for testing and bug fixing and that final bit of polish. But even in the final few days before that, there were some quite key scenes coming together still. And so it was that by the end of March, we had a demo of Act 1. I've been trying to make a Bible game since I was 21 years old, so that's basically 18 years of my life. And to have a playable demo there on my iPad, to have it looking so gorgeous, it was just an amazing feeling. I'm so thankful to God for helping us get this far. Really proud of the team and what we've achieved. And so finally, step 6, we shared it with the public. I was so excited to get to Wales, I could hardly sleep in the end. And the response was just fantastic. We had all sorts of people playing it. I was especially encouraged by the ages of the people who enjoyed it. So we had all sorts of 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, even students. People of all kinds of ages gave us really fantastic feedback, and it was so encouraging. It was such a fantastic validation of our hopes and prayers for this project. One of my favourites was an 11-year-old who simply said, "It's brilliant." Or we had a mum who said, "I never knew I could get so emotionally invested in an app." And so now that the conference is over, step 7, we rest. We've all worked flat out for months now to get the game to this point. So I've made sure that the whole team knows to take some decent time off and come back feeling refreshed. I've taken my kids to see the Super Mario Brothers movie, which was fun. Having that completely immovable deadline that I just couldn't shift was so helpful in motivating us to get the game to this point. At the end of July, I'm going to be heading to the Christian Game Developers Conference, and I hope that that's going to provide the same kind of impetus for getting Act 2s to the same sort of standard. And then after that, we've got Christmas. Well, if you like what you've seen and you want us to be able to build the rest of the game, then we're going to need your help. We've built the game so far relying on various charitable grants, but for this next stretch, we want to open it up to you, the public. We're looking to raise £32,000. That's £1 for every verse in the Bible, which sounds like a lot, but thanks to some matched giving we've got lined up, for every £1 you give, we get £2 towards the project. You can give from anywhere in the world, but if you happen to be a UK taxpayer and can gift aid your donations, then the UK government will add an extra 25%. So for every £1 you give, we actually get a whopping £2.50 towards the project. You can give by debit or credit card, by PayPal, or in the UK you can give anonymously via stewardship. Just head to serpentseedgame.org or follow the link in the description below. I'm really looking forward to seeing what God has in store for the next 3 months. We've got some really cool concept art lined up for Act 2, and I can't wait to crack on and build it. If you want to be kept in the loop, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You should also make sure you're signed up to our monthly email newsletter on the website, and we're on all the major social networks as @SerpentSeedGame. Thanks for watching.